Oh, Artorias, my goat, your goat. Anyone who's anyone loves Artorias. All of us Souls enjoyers cling to the shreds of good in our video games because the ones we like make us want to kill ourselves. Solaire, Siegvard, and Alexander are some standout examples of NPCs we love, as their more direct nature with the player adds to a more personal connection, but many of us cling to bosses in the same way. You guys know by now that I love Radahn in that way. A boss I look up to, a shred of good in a dog shit world, one I find respect in facing and mercy in defeating. Much like our NPCs, every game has one or more bosses like this. Ludwig, Gundyr, the Burnt Ivory King, and of course, Artorias. These characters are often framed in tragedy. The Burnt Ivory King sacrificing himself to halt chaos, Ludwig succumbing to the old blood, Gundyr's arrival at Firelink just to find it dark, and then Artorias. Well, Artorias is the GOAT, one of the 4 legendary Knights of Gwyn, protector of Ulasil, savior of Princess Dusk, and slayer of Manus, the primeval father of the Abyss. And yet, Artorias is a fraud, a hoax, a sham. He's nothing more than a legend and a failure. When I first played through Dark Souls 1, I didn't really pick up on too much of the story, especially in the DLC. I was too busy bitching about Ulasil and Manus to notice the really cool gimmick of the DLC, time travel. Now, it's pretty obvious, and maybe in the moment I did notice it, but I never really grasped the implications of what really happened. You see, time travel is a tricky thing to do in video games, because it's easy to make paradoxes. If the player doesn't do one tiny thing, it could fuck up the timeline and ruin continuity. Kinda like the time paradox thing from Metal Gear if you kill Ocelot, since he appears in later games.
Snake, what have you done? You changed the future. You've created a time paradox.
It's hard to prepare for every player action, especially if the next games are already set up. With Dark Souls, this actually works pretty well since the legend of Artorias is just that, a legend. In the present, we barely know a damn thing about Artorias other than that he is dead and his grave is guarded by his old partner Sif. But his legend is a legend I don't want to spoil just yet, so for now, let me officially welcome you back to Song to Story, my silly little series that makes me very happy and want to continue to live. My friend, we are taking a trip back in time today, deviating from our Elden Ring roots to tackle the poster boy of the first in the Souls trilogy, Dark Souls 1's Artorias. From the fallen kingdom of the Golden Order to the fallen kingdom of Lordran, we're tackling the Dark Souls poster boy today and his tragically beautiful story. We'll be going over his story in detail to the best of my ability. You'll have to forgive me as I'm not nearly as learned about Dark Souls as I am about Elden Ring, but of course I will put my best effort forward. Now, as for the structure of this video, Song to Story is split up into 2 parts. Part 1 of this video is the story analysis, where I'll do pretty much what I just stated. I'll go over the story in detail and set us up for part 2, the music analysis. We'll go over Artorias' boss theme in segments, analyzing each part and how the music tells his story. This is the first episode, actually, not to feature Don Vosk, the composer whose videos I played to describe the more technical side of music, mainly chord progressions, harmonies, and what certain scales mean and the emotions they convey. So, this time, I'll just be raw dogging the track by myself. With that in mind, let's get this show on the road. Let me say before we start, thank you very much for watching. Since the last video went up, the channel has doubled in subs, and I am very appreciative of that. I'm shooting for 1,000 this year, so I'm really gonna try and grind this shit out, but enough of that. My friend, it's great to have you, and welcome back to Song to Story. This story begins long before humanity ever existed. Pygmies, humanity's primordial ancestors, roamed underground, forced to a dark existence under the rule of dragons. While their immortal overlords claimed dominion over the surface, the pygmies roamed the dark until their lives found purpose. One day, 4 special pygmies would happen upon an amazing discovery, something to bring meaning to the dark of existence: fire. The discovery of the first flame would perhaps be the most pivotal thing in history, as upon uncovering the flame, 4 of the pygmies would be graced with souls. Souls of light and splendor, and these 4 pygmies would be named thus: Gwyn, Nito, the Witch of Izalith, and the Furtive Pygmy. Nito, Gwyn, and the Witch would use their souls to challenge the immortal dragons on the surface, while the Furtive Pygmy would use its soul for something else entirely. You see, while the other lords' souls were ones of light, the Pygmy had been given one of dark. Yes, the literal dark soul of which the series is named after. With this dark soul, the Furtive Pygmy would create a race in its image, a race in which each member would inherit a piece of its lord's soul, a race to walk in light and dark, just as it had. This race would come to be known as humanity. Following this, Gwyn and the combined might of the other lords would successfully beat back the dragons, and with his new soul and subsequent mastery over sunlight and fire, he would begin to establish Lordran for his own and herald the Age of Gods, better known as the Age of Fire. With the coming of the Age of Fire and Gwyn's position at the helm as its reigning god, a plague soon washed over the young god, a plague that cripples many kings: fear. Fear over the Dark Soul and its potential for power. The Dark Soul is much more unique than the other light souls of the Lords. The Dark Soul has the capability to be shaped and grown through emotion. That, paired with its life-giving properties, made the creation of the Dark Soul, humanity, absolutely jacked for potential. This, however, comes with a counterpoint. The power of the Dark Soul also produced the potential for corruption, which manifests as the Abyss. Gwyn, of course, feared this too, because he realized when he stared into the Abyss didn't stare back. It swallowed up his gaze and his sunlight. Its potential dwarfed his Age of Fire, and so he sought to do what he did best: conquer and suppress. You see, the humans actually were conscripted in the war against the dragons. They fought alongside the 4 lords, forging semi-living arms and armors, and yet their contributions were wiped from the records. The lords feared the dark that lived in each and every human, and upon their humanity the lords cast a seal of fire which would come to be known as the Dark Sign. The Dark Sign would limit their potential and curse them to a half-life.
Gordon Freeman.
Then, as time crept along, the age of the first flame began to fade. Gwyn himself would sacrifice his body to continue the age, to link the fire, as it were. But fire needs fuel, and Gwyn burned himself up in his maddening fear of the dark. But with his sacrifice and subsequent hollowing, the world was left godless, and the undead began to rise as fire faded and dark encroached. Fast forward a little bit to some 500 or 600 years before the events of the first game, to a city called Oolacile. Oolacile was a land of sorceries, not too dissimilar from Elden Ring's Celia. Not too much other than this is known about Oolacile's culture. The enchanted ember item says that, quote, "This enchanted ember, a form of sorcery, is a vestige of the lost land of Oolacile," unquote. We know that embers are used to upgrade certain weapons of certain affinities, so it would make sense that the one to upgrade magic-tuned weapons would reference Oolacile, but it doesn't tell us anything new about the place. What we do know is that long ago there was a particularly notorious sorcerer in Oolacile, Manus. Also, I just want to say that there is no real official, image of Manus before he turned into what he turned into. I won't spoil it. So this is kind of like my OC version of Manus, as fucking stupid as that sounds, but yeah, no, so this is my headcanon, so don't kill me. Manus himself was a primordial human, meaning he was a first-generation creation from the Furtive Pygmy, I think. I think it's probable that Manus himself is a pygmy, a being with a substantially larger dark soul than the rest of humanity. In my research, the definition of what differentiates pygmies and humans seems slightly vague, but I'm pretty sure that pygmies are the same humanoid beings, just with larger parts of the Dark Soul, i.e. more human than humans, if that makes sense. Either way, he had a truly impressive Dark Soul nestled within him, and he was able to create some pretty gnarly dark sorceries. In his dark sorceries, it is said that he could manipulate the very essence of the Dark Soul. He could imbibe emotions into humanity in ways to manipulate it like no one else could. For instance, in the sorcery Pursuers, it is said that it's, quote, a sorcery of Manus, father of the Abyss. Grant a fleeting will to the dark of humanity and volley the result. The will feels envy, or perhaps love, and despite the inevitably trite and tragic ending, the will sees no alternative and is driven madly towards its target, end quote. Now, I'm honestly not entirely sure what this implies, but whatever Manus could do, he could do it well. He had fashioned a staff for himself, a large and crude hunk of wood. It's interesting to note that the staff more resembles a shepherd's crook, or even the shape of a wooden scythe. This naturally connects him to Christ or the Grim Reaper, which is fitting for his undeniably powerful influence over humanity and human souls. Honestly though, his catalyst wasn't important. Manus was just him. He also had a pendant that was quite special to him. We have little to no information about this pendant other than it meant a lot to him. And other than that, not much is known about Manus or Oolacile for this time period. The records of the place are more or less lost to ash and time. The sorcery is hardly replicable by even the most learned scholars. And so, Manus would do the most important thing he'd ever do. He died. He died and the world kept moving. For a couple hundred years, the world kept turning until one day, one of the primordial serpents, presumably Cath, appeared in Oolacile. The chuddy fuck was of course one of the serpents of an age, much like his brother Frampt. While Frampt sought to continue the age of fire set up by Gwyn, Cath sought to end it and replace it with an age of dark, an age of man to Frampt's continued age of gods. So how would Cath attempt to bring about this age of dark? Well, for this attempt, he would travel to Oolacile and convince the people there to upturn the grave of primeval man, Manus, for Cath knew of his extraordinary dark soul. And I don't know who was in charge of giving this primordial phallus the go-ahead, but I'm glad the motherfucker's dead, because in doing this they sealed the fate of Oolacile and many others who would attempt to rescue it. Now, Manus was, I'm sure, pretty damn confused when he woke back up, but it wouldn't take long for him to realize something was terribly wrong. He woke up without his precious pendant. Now, again, nobody really knows why Manus loves this pendant so much. Maybe it was his precious Sonichu equivalent, and without it he loses his sanity, but regardless, he was pissed. In a mad frenzy upon his revival, his dark soul went wild, bringing forth the abyss in his anger. His mad emotions fueled the inky masses of humanity into the abyss until it came to swallow up Oolacile. The darkness that swelled from within him would spawn countless humanity phantoms, not too dissimilar from the abyssal sorceries Manus himself invented. The phantoms would seep into the cracks of Oolacile, corrupting its denizens and scholars by driving their humanity wild. Their bodies would deform and their heads would distend, turning them into float heads. They would actually discover some abyssal sorceries themselves, Dark Orb and Dark Beads, both of which describe the sorcerers losing themselves after their humanity swelled out of control. At some point, Manus would even kidnap the princess of Oolacile, Princess Dusk, and she would end up imprisoned in a golem. Whether or not she was imprisoned before or after she was kidnapped by Manus is unknown, but Gwyn wasn't going to sit idly by while his greatest fear began encroaching upon his lands. And so he sent the Knight Artorias to Oolacile to slay Manus and rescue Princess Dusk. Now, Artorias was one of the famed 4 Knights of Gwyn alongside Goth, Ornstein, and Kiaran. Yes, it's not pronounced Kiaran, it's Kiaran. I don't know why, it just is. Actually, dumb fuck, it's pronounced Kiaran, not Kiaran, you fucking moron. I don't know how I got this fucking wrong, but I'm gonna have to deal with it while I'm editing this video, and I want to pull off my cock! I'm such a moron, god damn it! Ornstein, Goth, and Artorias were old homies from back in the dragon slaying days, having served Gwyn since the lords had discovered their souls back underground. Though I don't know if I can confidently say the same for Kiaran. While the other three guys look either ancient or have dragon-slaying lore, I can't really place down how long Kiaden was in service for. It would make sense for her to fall in line with the rest of the knights, but she just stands out. Maybe it's because she's a traditional humanoid and not some uniquely modeled NPC. I mean, even Chester stands out more than her, but I digress. Out of the four of them, Artorias was the one destined to save Ulasil, since he had once before fought the Abyss. You see, as Ulasil fell to the primordial cock, Kath, he recognized that, yeah, no, this isn't gonna work out. That Manus guy is a fucking lunatic. And so he went searching for a new Dark Lord. His search took him to New Londo, another city of humans. New Londo was ruled over by 4 kings, each recognized for their foresight and leadership by Gwyn, and so each was given a special piece of his soul. Now, if you'll remember, Gwyn sacrificed himself to link the flame, casting himself into the kiln in a desperate measure to keep his Age of Gods going. This is what triggered Kath to seek out a new lord, much like his brother Frant. Kath ended up in New Londo and ended up speaking to the 4 kings. He would teach them the abilities of Life Drain, the ability to prolong their humanity and life through the fading Age of Fire. He would also remove the shackles of the dark side, unchaining their humanity and thus their potential. Naturally, they all turned into abyssal monsters, just like Manus. The 4 kings turned into wild sex gimps. God knows what they do down there in the Abyss. Well, Artorias the Freak Walker wanted to find out, so he sent out to confront them. I want to take some time to really appreciate the design work of Knight Artorias. First off, the blue. Blue isn't a color often seen in Dark Souls. Many facets of the culture are centered around fire and gold, and blue is a natural contrast to that. It's cooler, calmer, more soothing, but by living in a world of yellows and reds, it stands out. The choice of blue gives him an air of royalty as well, as blues during most of human civilization, much like purples, were marginally harder to come by for things like paints, silks, and dyes. Thus, only the highest bidders got their hands on illustrious purple silks or deep, rich blues for only the most esteemed of painters. Thus, the blue on Artorias highlights his deep importance and prestige to the godly lineage. And be honest, did you even know Artorias had a great shield too? I'll go over his in-game appearances later, but yes, in fact, he did have a magic great shield to go along with his greatsword. Editor's note, while I was drawing the icons for this video, I noticed the prominent plant imagery and theming engraved onto Artorias' great shield, particularly on the back. Perhaps this imagery is the reason for its warding abilities. Plants are often depicted as paragons of life and protectiveness, and we see numerous buds, weaving roots, and canopies all encrusted in gold over the inside of the shield. Likely the gold is intentional as well to represent the gods and perhaps Gwyn's watchful eye itself. Either way, it's a neat detail that I figured out after writing the script and thought it important to bring up. Anyways, let's get back to it. I would also like to point out the facelessness in his design. While the name Artorias is known throughout time, not a single one of us knows the human behind the name. It's the classic faceless knight, recognized and beloved for their deeds. It's a tragically virtuous thing, really, to place your life on the line, to protect those weaker than you, but to only be recognized by the helmet or sword. You turn yourself into an icon, trading away your humanity, very fitting, to become a symbol, still beloved, but hardly personally. The facelessness of Artorias symbolizes this dichotomy perfectly. His face is this black void. It could be anyone behind there, and yet we all act like we know him, we love him. I mean, he's Artorias, the Artorias. How could you not love him? And yet, nobody could tell you his last name. Nobody could tell you the color of his hair. Nobody aside from maybe Sif. Sif is another tragic character in Artorias' storyline, though there is no shortage of them. Sometime out in his adventures, perhaps to New Londo, perhaps to Ulasil, Artorias would meet Sif, a giant gray wolf who would come to accompany him on his travels. The two would forge a deep bond. Perhaps Sif was the only one to truly know him. Her companionship was undoubtedly cherished by Artorias. She wouldn't come with the expectations of a lord, the corruption of the Abyss, or anything like that. Just the loyalty of a best friend and the capabilities of a giant sword-wielding dog. And yes, I see you typing that comment. I am calling Sif a she. Honestly, Sif's sex doesn't matter, but it is ultimately unknown. I looked online for a solid answer, and some people think it's more appropriate to use feminine pronouns for her since she's named after the Norse goddess. I'll just run with that, though ultimately, again, it doesn't matter. While we're on the subject of character analysis, you know I gotta take my opportunity to jerk off Berserk. Artorias is handily one of the most Berserk-inspired characters in the Souls franchise. He heavily resembles the Berserker armor's segmented style, and the abyssal shadows that end up draping around his body mimic Guts' cloak. But, of course, everyone knows about the iconic pose. Left arm hanging slack, sword over the back, and hunched over. A complete one-to-one. The Berserk references were pretty brazen back in the day, and it's pretty cool for the poster boy of Dark Souls 1 to be a massive Berserk reference, as we all know that Miura, may he rest, was one of the biggest influences on Miyazaki in the Souls series, and Artorias is a testament to that fact. Now, with the meat swallowing out of the way, Artorias had one more thing up his sleeve. Well, two, I guess, but one for now. He had a ring made for him with a wolf imprinted on it, aptly named the Wolf Ring. This shows really how close Sif was to him. When others would make him jewelry, it would be of Sif. The ring itself gives us a fuckload of poise, and the item description says, quote, Artorias had an unbendable will of steel and was unmatched with a greatsword, end quote. It's likely that this ring did the same, giving him poise to match his indomitable will and allowing his strikes with his greatsword to hit unfaltering. With this ring, his arsenal, and Sif, Artorias would go to confront the four kings and the small legion of dark wraiths, powerful abyssal knights. Artorias, promptly, got his ass kicked. Yeah, our legendary hero's first big fight against the Abyss went horribly wrong. So wrong that the next solution was to just drown the problems and sink the entire city underwater. Yeah, so that went well. But fret not, Artorias would actually be rewarded for this fuck-up. Maybe in an act of humiliation therapy, or maybe out of genuine goodwill, he was gifted the Silver Pendant. Its description says, quote, one of the ancient treasures of Anor Londo, presented to Artorias for facing the Abyss, effectively deflects the dark of the Abyss, especially in its magic forms, unquote. This pendant was the big fuck you to the Abyss, supposedly doing a decent job at deflecting away abyssal magic, which would hopefully come in useful against his next big target, Manus himself. Now, I don't know what took over Artorias, but for some reason, the four kings didn't stretch his hole far enough, and so he sought an even harder abyssal enemy, a primordial human turned chimera schizo god. So, despite his better judgment, he went on his quest. This quest, by the way, is such a classic narrative, a knight and his familiar rescuing a princess from a dastardly monster. It's been done 1,000 times, the damsel in distress. From Hercules to Super Mario World, it's a tale as old as time. The brave knight and his animal companions slay a beast to save the princess, but this tale doesn't end like Mario World. You see, Artorias got his ass kicked again! He waltzed his way into Ulasil and got slimed instantly. Thanks, big guy. Really doing a great job on that whole Abysswalker thing. In all seriousness, Artorias slaughtered his way through the corrupted sorcerers of Ulasil, making it all the way down to Manus' Abyss. But somewhere along the way, one of the little boogers stole his silver pendant and made off with it, hiding it behind an illusory wall. Artorias, the dumbass, didn't think to look up a walkthrough of Ulasil, so he just fucked off into the Abyss without it. It's honestly quite sad when you think about it. Artorias, probably afraid of returning to Gwyn with yet another failure to stop the thing he hates the most, decides to press forward, likely dooming himself in the process. It's an honorable and tragic thing, Artorias forcing himself deeper into the Abyss despite the odds stacked so heavily against him. But things would only get worse for him. Delving even further, even without the Abyss-repelling pendant, he would make it all the way down to Manus. Artorias, Sif, and Manus would all start tearing each other to shreds, the battle lasting an indeterminate amount of time, but ultimately resulting in Artorias' defeat. Manus, most likely with his bendy arm bullshit, would shatter Artorias' left arm, the arm we see hanging limply later. And many of you might not know this, but Artorias was left-handed. That was his sword arm. Even so, he fought on like a demon out of hell, or perhaps seeing Sif in mortal danger without his full capabilities, he decided it was time to flee. On the escape, he would hide Sif away, setting her down in a secluded area of the cave to rest and recover. He would lay down his great shield, placing a repelling ward around it for Sif's protection, and said goodbye. Drawing the rest of the Abyssals with him, Sif's ward would remain safe thanks to his sacrifice. And that's really the long and short of it. Artorias would never come home. He remained in Ulasil, slowly becoming corrupted by Manus and the Abyss. It's also important to note that while they were in Ulasil, the two befriended a white-gray feline named Alvina. She came to trust the pair, and ended up guarding Sif's resting place in the legend of Artorias. But somehow, this legend isn't remembered in failure. The Artorias we know of is a hero. He slayed Manus, conquered the Abyss, and rescued Princess Dusk. He is the hero! He was the honorable, faceless knight that killed the dragon and saved the princess. But no, this isn't true. The entire thing isn't a legend, but a prophecy. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, and one that we, the chosen undead, are needed for. Now, forget all you just learned. Now, we're in the present, and we're gonna adopt the mindset of our chosen undead. Cool? Cool. As we are reawoken as an undead, nearly hollow and somehow walking, we have but one goal: Link the Fire. Our journey takes us through Lordran, a kingdom of great heights long past. As we make our way through the different areas, we come upon a blacksmith, Andre. Aside from being a lovable and invaluable ally, he interestingly sells an item called the Crest of Artorias. If you're broke, like me, you may want to go into the neighboring Deeproot Garden to farm some runes, and so we do just that. If we poke around the area, we can actually find one of these living tree mimic things. They squirm around when we hit them, and this one in particular opens up a pathway. If we follow it, cutting down another one, we come across a ring, the Wolf Ring. Reading its item description tells us that yes, this is the same ring that was given to Artorias. But how the fuck did it end up all the way out here? For now, we don't have any answers, so we keep poking around the side area. Eventually, past these big golem fucks, we climb a tower to what is handily one of the worst bosses in the game. Not aesthetically, I love the way the Moonlight Butterfly looks, its boss theme and all that, but god damn, this is a boring ass fight. Despite that, we can muscle through it and slay the beast, giving us enough souls to return to Andre and buy the Crest of Artorias. Now, once we actually get our hands on it, it says that, quote, "This crest opens a door in the Darkroot Garden sealed by ancient magic. The door leads to the grave of Sir Artorias, the Abysswalker. Many adventurers have left for the grave, but none have returned, for they make easy prey for the local bandits. With such dangers, the crest can do more harm than good in the hands of the uninitiated," end quote. Huh. Interesting. So this tells us a few things. One, if we didn't already know, Artorias is dead. Sure, you and I know that he was as good as dead, but his fate was left ambiguous. But this crest tells us that he is in fact actually gone. Secondly, apparently there are bandits along the way to this grave, and we'll need to be careful lest they gut us like a fish.
Guards now, can I?
Finally, many a traveler have sought out his grave, and none have lived to tell the tale, be it from the bandits or something else entirely. Well, we have it now, so we might as well use it and see what all the fuss is about. Doing so opens this giant door and leads us down a separate pathway into the Darkroot Garden. Moving through the garden itself, sure as shit we get jumped by a few bark-chewing fucknuts, and if we don't suck shit we can beat them back and progress. Doing so takes us to a rather unassuming ruin, but this one has the ugliest cat in the fucking world perched up on its window. Talking to her, she tells us this.
"Is it not so that thou art new? Thou fared well to find me. But cometh thee not for the grave of Sir Artorias? My advice true. Forget this. The legend of Artorias art none but a fabrication. Traversing the dark. 'Tis but a fairy tale. Have thine own respect. Go not yonder knocking for nothing, I say.
She says she guards the grave of Artorias with her league of bandits. If we tell her that we are to seek it out, she says,
Well, indeed, thou art a strange one. Nevertheless, I feel some liking for thee. I'm Alvina of the Darkroot Wood. I command a clan of hunters who track down defilers of the forest graves. What dost thou say? Wilt thou not join us? Oh, yes, I believe we would suit thee well.
Interestingly, she sweetens up to us quickly. If we accept her invitation to the Covenant, she tells us that
I am very glad. And now thou art one of us. Let us establish a covenant.
Alright, cool. So, now we're a catboy in service to Alvina in protecting Artorias' grave. If we poke around the grove a bit longer, we see a giant set of doors across a bridge, which, if we use a little insight and remember the doors we opened with the crest of Artorias, should tell us that his grave lies beyond there. Well, we've sworn to protect it, so for now, let's leave it alone. If you'll remember, Alvina was the great feline Artorias and Sif met in Ulasil. She was the one who guarded Sif's ward, hiding it away from intruders. It's sweet to know that she still protects the knight's grave even all these years later. I'm talking hundreds of years. If we continue the game like normal, returning to Andre's tower and instead turning to Sen's fortress, we can make our way through the cock and ball torture mansion into a boss fight with the Iron Golem. Killing him presents us with a golden ball on the ground, and once touched, we get one of the most breathtaking scenes in all of the Souls series, the reveal of Anor Londo. Now, pressing through Anor Londo, battling past the gargoyles, the cocksleeves on the rafters, and the infamous bridge archers, we end up coming to blows with Ornstein and Smo. As legendary as this fight is, it is a painful fucking fight. ONS attacking you through each other, Smo pushing Ornstein around with his hammer, and the brutal fucking you're on the receiving end most of the time when they both aggro. Love the fight, but Jesus Christ. Anyways, we beat them and make our way up to Mommy Milkers herself. Now, as an anti-gooner myself, I would never be fooled by a giant rack on my screen because I thirst for testosterone, only something like Siegmeyer can give. So, we plug her in the dome, plunging Anor Londo into darkness in another breathtaking cinematic. For those of you who think I just murdered an innocent person, first of all, it's Dark Souls. Nobody is innocent. Second of all, she's not real. Literally a trick of the light. Guinevere is an illusion, and in breaking the illusion, we've pissed off the real royalty of Anor Londo, Gwyndolin. Heading down, he shows himself, and while I cannot be persuaded by giant video game tits, I absolutely can be persuaded by fuckable Dark Souls femboys. So, naturally, I can't stop myself from barreling down the hallway in an hedonistic frenzy chasing the object of my dreams until I cave his head in with a hammer. Not exactly the proclamation of love I was going for, but when I see a shy, breedable twink, I just can't help myself. Now, you might be wondering why I'm going on like a madman about femboys, and trust me, all of this is important. We needed to kill ONS to gain access to Guinevere, and she gives us the Lord Vessel, our ticket to the endgame. I just went on about Gwyndolin because I wanted to. Now, it would be more appropriate to talk to Kath in order to get this done, but I'll be honest, I had been playing Dark Souls 1 for 3 days straight at this point, and I could not have been asked to stick around in New Londo any longer than I had to, so I just went with Frampt. Upon being vored into a giant penis monster, Jesus, that's a new sentence, we're taken to the Firelink altar where we place down the Lord Vessel. Now, this allows us to access the souls of the four lords. Nito, whom you should remember from the beginning as one of the OGs, Seath the Scaleless, the Bed of Chaos, which was the Witch of Izalith's undoing, and the Four Kings, which were the Gimps of New Londo we touched up on earlier. Now, we'll get to the purpose of it in a minute, but for now let's do a little bit more exploring. If we return to Andre and take a different turn out of the Deep-Root Garden, we come across the Aquatic Hydra. This guy will be launching water at us from a long distance, so naturally, he pissed me off and I headed over to kill him. Turns out he's a massive prick, and when he lunges at you, you're supposed to cut his heads off. I don't know if the devs ever heard of the whole cut off one head and two more grow back thing, but I guess that'd make for a pretty shitty boss, so by the time I was down to the last head, it just kept doing this awkward angled sweep, and it just was damn near impossible to hit, especially because I couldn't see a damn thing around all the shit it was kicking up, but whatever. If we circle around the side, we can get a decent angle on it and finish it off. Good riddance, honestly. Now, if we walk along the side of this lagoon area, we find a strange sight, a golden golem tucked away in a corner. Now, it may be hard for the average player to see, but actually, there's someone stuck inside it. It's a woman in a dress. She looks trapped, maybe? Unconscious, not moving. If we attack the golem, it fights back like any other would, but once destroyed, this happens. She's fine, I suppose. Alive and well, it seems. And when we try to talk to her, she says,
"So, 'tis thou who rescueth me. Most gracious, I am deeply obliged. I am Dusk of Ulasil. I cometh from an age long before thine. I cannot stay here for long. So, before I disappear, allow me to ask one thing. My home, Ulasil, is the home of ancient sorceries. My hope is to pass this profound knowledge to thee, with thine approval. Would this be of assistance to thee?" My heartfelt thanks. I am pleased beyond words. Then I shout, "Engrave my signature. If thou art in need, pray summon me from my signature. It seems that my time is done. May the great flames guide thee."
What the fuck? The Princess Dusk, here. How the fuck is that even possible? As far as we know, the Dusk of Ulasil might as well be dead, but here she is, in fact acknowledging her position out of time, saying that Ulasil is the home of ancient sorceries, implying that she herself is ancient as well. We have a lot of questions, and conveniently, after she gives us the tiniest bit of exposition, she fucking fades off. Thankfully, though, she tells us that she'll set down a summon sign, and sure enough, if we poke around the garden again, killing off these fucknut golem guys, we can get another opportunity to talk to her.
I am Dusk of Ulasil. It is an honor to see thee again. I shall follow thy wishes. For a very long time, I was trapped within the crystal golem. From my home I was taken and banished to a plane of distortion. It was there that thou came to my rescue, long after I had relinquished all hope. So gleeful was I. My faith reneweth.
Her first words are that she was sealed away in the golem and banished to a place of distortion, whatever that means. Something time travel, I'm sure. If you know what that interstice might be, please let me know because I'm genuinely curious. She said that she had lost hope as well, which implies that she could have been conscious in that thing, trapped in a golden coffin for 300 years. Fuck me. She continues.
The sorceries of Ulasil differ from the magic of thine age. It is difficult to explain. Ulasil's sorceries are, what doth one say? They're somewhat of an approximation. Thine sorceries are more straightforward, negating all but thyself. Dost thou not find some fascination in these discrepancies?
Now she talks about the sorceries of Ulasil and how they differ from ours. Sure, our sorceries are mostly shit like kill this, and kill this but red, or kill this but explosion. But the sorceries of her time, the ones that she can sell to us actually, are much different. The Ulasil sorceries are much more gimmicky, much more utility focused, if utility is the right word. They're almost trollish in nature. Literally, one is see with light, then disappear, weapon disappear, and prop hunt. They are uncanny and odd, but useful in the right circumstances. For someone of our age, they might befuddle us with their nature, but for Ulisilites, this is just the surface of their magical knowledge. These sorceries alter the state of reality itself, repairing damaged items, making the physical invisible or transform. They are a distortion of the laws as we know it, such as their complete domination over magic, and what makes their culture's loss sting all the more. Finally, she can tell us a bit more about Ulasil itself, saying,
My home of Ulasil was reduced to ashes long ago in my time. I have been alone ever since, but to be summoned thus, and to be of service to thee, it is most rewarding. Oh, forgive me. Such a long past time is none of thine concern.
She brings our undead into the know, Ulasil being reduced to ashes long ago, but she's happy with this newfound purpose. But for now, that's all she has to offer. So we go about our journey, our placing of the Lord Vessel opening up new areas for us to go to. Once we head around to the Duke's archives in Anor Londo, we naturally do some poking around, getting jumped by two dumbass boars who get stuck on each other, and then the entire goon squad. When we see this black-pilled golem chilling in the corner, probably contemplating his cold, meaningless existence like a true Redditor, he doesn't expect an ass-whooping, which we promptly give, just for the souls. But instead we get something quite different. We get a broken pendant. Fucking strange thing for a golem to be holding. Let's check the item description. Quote, half of a broken stone pendant. The vine appears to originate from Ulasil. Oh, shit. A powerful magic can be sensed from this ancient stone, yet men of this time can neither manipulate nor sense its power, which is a distinct error consisting of both reverence and nostalgia, end quote. While this golem isn't golden like the other one, perhaps it is true that the golems are some sort of living time capsule, or maybe like a Dark Souls Chester. That crystal on their back has been shown to be hollowed out, but I digress. When we read the word Ulasil, we instantly think of Dusk, so we beeline it back to her. Of course, we gotta kill those blue crystal dickheads again, but when we do, and search for her summon sign, she's nowhere to be seen. Her summon sign is gone. In a panic, we look around the arena, even backtracking to the place where we first found her in the golem, and what the fuck is that? Approaching where the golem once stood now is a gaping abyssal thing. Next to it is an item. If we pick it up, it's Dusk's outfit, which is naturally a signifier that an NPC has died or disappeared. It lines up since we can't find her. So we do what we can and interact with the portal. Once we do, this happens. A massive hand erupts forth, dragging us violently into a cave. The footage wouldn't fucking tell you because I had like 3 menus up at once, but this is the Sanctuary Garden. Exiting our cave, we pass through a fog wall into the Sanctuary Guardian boss fight. The Sanctuary Guardian of the Sanctuary Garden. Say that 10 times fast. The Sanctuary Guardian of the Sanctuary Garden. 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 The Sanctuary Guardian of the fucking fuck! This guy's a pretty interesting thing. Typical chimera design, including the goat's hooves, lion head, and instead of a snake, we get a scorpion. It can be a bit of a challenge at first, adapting players to the much faster-paced bosses of the DLC, but it's easily overcome. We pass into this beautiful wooded area, the Ulasil Sanctuary. First off, the design of this area is so cool to me. The semicircle of humanoid stone figures overlooking the bonfire, almost like all eyes are on us as we go about this journey. The souls of a dead civilization watch on as we plunge into its ashes. If you look around, we see a giant mushroom sticking out of the wall. We can actually walk up and talk to it, and it introduces itself.
Well, look at this one. From what faraway age hast thou come? Thy scent is very human indeed, but not intolerable. Ah, Princess Dusk's savior. Thine aura is precisely as she described. I thank thee deeply for rescuing Her Highness. But Princess Dusk is here no longer, snatched away by that horrifying primeval human. And so I must ask, couldst thou once more play the savior?
We say yes.
Thank you. I am Elizabeth, guardian of this sanctuary. Something of a godmother to Princess Dusk. I shall assist thee to my utmost, for I am one with the sorceries of Urasil.
So a giant mushroom recognizes us as Dusk's savior. I'm not really sure how Dusk was able to tell Elizabeth about this, if she was being snatched away by something. Maybe she did a drive-by word vomit. Hey, by the way, some fat chud and black saved me, bye! Or something like that. Also, that something she mentioned, the primeval human, it rings a bell in our minds, though our undead has no idea what she's talking about. We can talk to her further, and she says,
Thou shalt see further on, an abyss was begat of the ancient beast, and threatens to swallow the whole of Ulasil. Knight Artorias came to stop this, but such a hero has nary a murmur of dark. Without doubt he will be swallowed by the abyss, overcome by its utter blackness. Indeed, the abyss may be unstoppable. Still, I have faith that Princess Dusk may be rescued yet.
Ah, fuck. She mentions Artorias by name, saying he's in peril and his existence is being threatened by the abyss. That, and she has faith that Dusk may be saved again. But that line, the abyss may be unstoppable, hovers a bad omen over this quest. She also seems to instantly know we're from a different time period just by our scent, keeping the trend of time travel going. Speaking of such, she mentions another like this, but that he's rather odious, repulsive in a way. Honestly, if she's referring to his acrid stench, that makes it all the funnier. We leave the garden in search of this guy, and enter this large forest area, the Royal Wood. Now, if you're a perceptive type, unlike myself, you might get a sense of familiarity with the area. It's because this Royal Wood is actually the ancient past location of the Darkroot Garden, the place where Artorias' grave rests in modern day. In fact, this starting sanctuary is that very location. Things are starting to line up. If we progress through the wood, we're attacked by these scarecrow guys, the modern equivalent to those overgrown bush monsters in the Darkroot. We can kick their asses easy enough, though a horde of them still proves deadly. Cutting them down and moving through, we can get attacked by these stone golem guys who, funnily enough, are practically unchanged over a couple hundred years of idle activity. If we run around and come to this bridge, we actually get jump scared by a dragon, all Hellkite Drake style. Though this thing looks noticeably more sinister with the singular glowing red eye and the jet black scales. He fucks off though, and we continue on our way. Now, as we progress, we notice more and more of these black gooey veins starting to spider out from chasms in the land, and looking down into one of these chasms, we can see this noxious vapor steaming out. The abyss, it seems, has corrupted even out to the furthest reaches beyond Ulasil underground. Things appear to be much worse than we thought. If we look off at certain ridgelines, we can see that entire cities didn't even exist yet. Undead Burg and Undead Parish just haven't been built, probably because the undead have yet to become a tangible problem yet. But Anne Orlando still towers above us. We can even come across the stone ruins Alvina sits in back in the present, but she isn't there in the past. In her wake is a functioning elevator, something we don't see at all in the present Darkroot. Heading down and out, we see a circular stone building and a peculiar fellow perched up outside it. Walking up to him, he mysteriously matches the description Elizabeth gave us of the odorous individual, and when we talk to him...
Let me guess. Snatched by a shadowy limb and dragged off to the past? Yes, of course. Exactly what happened to me. We are both strangers in this strange land. But at least now there are two of us.
It all makes sense now. He smells like shit 'cause he's English. In all seriousness, Marvelous Chester is an interesting character. He says he too was yanked into the past by a shadowy limb. But he isn't an NPC in the base game, and his fashion is unlike anything we've seen in Dark Souls 1. My theory, and the popular one, is that he is from Yharnam, the city of Bloodborne. He dons the classic Gothic English outfit, the handsome voice and accent, and despite the fashion, he is dressed rather practically. He has knives strapped to his legs, a traveling leather bag, and nothing but a candelabra by his side. He's dressed like a hunter, and I'm skipping a bit ahead, but if we fight him, he has no shield or sword, just a crossbow. He dashes around and is particularly aggressive, which all suits the bloodborne playstyle and fighting customs of the hunters. He's an interesting chap, but he has more to say.
Did you happen across Knight Artorias? The legendary Abysswalker from the old tales? Well, if you haven't, it's just as well. He's a colorless sort, if you ask me.
He looks down on Artorias, thinking him to be rather vapid. Notice how he punctuates every line with a laugh or jaunt. It could also be teasing at the madness of Yarnamites in the future to come. Ultimately, though, he doesn't offer much, which is a shame because apparently he had a much larger impact on the game, but in typical FromSoft fashion, all the good shit was cut out. But now, we come upon this rather unassuming tower. It's a Colosseum-like in build with a blatant fog wall draped over the entrance. Of course, we hesitantly walk through, and we are greeted with this. I don't need to tell you that this cutscene is fucking iconic. Finally, face to face with Artorias, and he's silent, but efficient, slamming down onto one of those bloated sorcerers and impaling him on his sword before sizing us up. The scene portrays him as deadly, efficient, and merciless towards the Abyss. Then, however, in an ironic twist, the Abyss begins to swirl around him as he sizes us up. It grows and grows as he groans in agony before screaming out in pain and hitting us with his legendary pose. His arm hangs limply, still broken from his fight with Manus, as he slings the bloathead over his shoulder before launching his corpse at us, and the fight begins. Now, this is the introduction we've all come to know and love. But what if I told you that Artorias actually has cut dialogue? That's right. Our voiceless, faceless knight actually had a chance to speak at one point, and let me play some of his voice lines now.
Whatever thou art, stay away. Soon, I will be consumed. Ah, Sif, there you are. All of you. Forgive me, for I have availed you nothing.
He sounds gentle, kind even. He apologizes, his guilt weighing heavier upon his shoulders than the Abyss itself. He even mentions Sif, which might imply that Sif could have been an ally to fight him with, or maybe Sif would join his side and fight us. I don't know. Either way, I'm gonna layer some of his voice lines on top of his introductory cutscene. When you rewatch it, I want you to think about how this changes our first impression of Artorias. Alright, here it is.
Whatever thou art, stay away. Soon, I will be consumed. By them, by the dark. I beg of thee, the spread of the Abyss. It must be stopped.
Now, with the dialogue superimposed over the cutscene, it paints Artorias in a much more tragic and human light. He bids us to get back, that he is not powerful enough to ward off the Abyss's influence and doesn't want us to be consumed by it as well. It is very reminiscent of Midra's voice lines from Elden Ring's DLC, though, of course, that came much later.
Leave. Now. Come no closer.
No closer, I say. The madness wears.
There's something so very sad about characters who recognize their own demise, that acknowledge their lives are over, and just want you to not get swallowed up in their misfortunes. It's tragic, a level of self-awareness that not a lot of fictional characters show. Now, musings aside, Artorias' fight itself is quite beautiful. He's erratic, easily more mobile than any base game boss, sliding around the arena with a grotesque grace. His sword, once beautiful, is now mired by the Abyss's inky black. His armor is gross. The fine blue fabrics I went into detail earlier are now torn. The shoulder pauldron is broken, a large gash going down the middle, likely from an immense impact. It subtly tells us that his arm is broken, if the limp appendage loosely hanging throughout the fight isn't enough. The Abyss swirls around him, actually enhancing his damage in a sort of power-up sequence. Luckily, he can be staggered out of this, but it shows that even the Abyss is now aiding him, whether he likes it or not. It makes him stronger. Even his broken arm is enabled by the Abyss. The only attack he can do with it is this attempt at a sling, but all that pours out of him is the Abyss. Still, even with his sword arm broken, and Artorias being forced to wield a two-handed weapon with his non-dominant hand, he packs a serious punch. His iconic triple somersault, which ignores iframes, by the way, would become a mainstay in the series. I couldn't imagine what fighting him in his prime would be like, but honestly, I learned my lesson from Radahn. I'm not trying to do all that again. But no, here we are, confronted with the legendary Artorias himself, and the wheel of the self-fulfilling prophecy turns a bit further. That prophecy is about to be irreversibly forwarded as we challenge Artorias, and as we do so, we are greeted by the haunting and eerie ballad of Knight Artorias, the Abysswalker. Let me preface this musical analysis by saying that I am not a music theorist, composer, or anyone of the sort. I'm just a guy who happens to know a little bit about music and how it makes me feel, and this entire analysis is an interpretation, as are all of my videos. I'm going to try my best to be as accurate as possible, but without Davi Vosk, the YouTuber whose clips I usually use to explain the technicalities of music, things are going to be a lot more theoretical this time around. If your analysis differs from mine, or you just want to take a steamy shit all over my take and tell me I forgot about one ring item description that changes this whole story, feel free to let me know in the comments. Another thing, you may notice that this footage of the fight is a little fucked, and that's because I had to install a mod in order to get this footage. For the first time in my career, I made the fatal error and fulfilled my own canon event. I forgot to press record. So all the footage of the actual Artorias fight never existed, so I used a mod to redo this fight. You may notice Kiaden just chilling out in the corner of the area, and while that is a little uncanny, I can only ask you to ignore it. Please forgive me. This game also deleted my Estus flask, so I could only ever heal through using humanity, so fucking whatever. Let's stop pussyfooting around and get into some music. Okay, already off to a great start. One thing I love so much about Dark Souls music is the subversion of expectation. You know, we're chasing this legendary, ultra-heroic, abyss-killing, badass Artorias, and when you finally meet him, he's a hunched-over, rotting shell of his former self, and the theme, Knight Artorias, does a fantastic job of portraying that subversion of expectations. It's a similar case with Gwyn. You make an entire grueling journey to fight the Lord of Cinder, the Gwyn himself, the one who crusaded against dragons, and yet all you get is blim blim blom. Dark Souls, as we know, is a series about bygone eras, about the cycle and what it means to continue that cycle, and Artorias fits the bill very, very well, even if he is 300 years in the past. I want us to look first at the time signature, 6/4. It is a 3-beat measure, often the core identity of Souls game music. 3-beat measures are associated in music history with the waltz, a deeply intimate dance between two individuals in which they sway and float across the ballroom floor in a hall full of guests doing the same. I find it deeply fascinating that Souls music chooses to resemble the waltz, because oftentimes these boss fights are described as a dance once you get good enough and stop fighting for your life. Knowing everything about your partner, everything they're going to do, memorizing the routine, and just entering a flow state is what these fights are all about. And that slow sway of Artorias' theme perfectly encapsulates that. Just 2 knights dancing atop the abyss. Next, the speed of the song is extremely slow. Let me put up a metronome, and let's just sit in how slow and droning the song really is. It's a stark contrast to the usual dramatic bombast of Souls music, and that is truly telling. Artorias stands out, slower, mired down by the abyss. He trudges through it, the sludge weighing down on his very soul and the music that encapsulates him. Now, for the instruments themselves, this track is mostly composed of these huge, yawning strings, mostly focused on that deep bass of the cello. It's a fantastic representation for the infinite yawning abyss, the very thing that defines Artorias now. Those huge strokes really feel like you're just staring into a massive swallowing maw, one that stares eerily back at you. It's all the more expanded upon by the introduction of that flute and the expanding choirs. It all creates this impossible, expanding force that just feels like you're tipping over into oblivion. Next, let's talk about the bells in this track. Usually bells are signifiers of some holy purpose, or even memento mori, signifiers of death. While that could be the case, in this example I believe the bells to be representing Anor Londo and Gwyn. For me, I have this image of church bells high up in towers that, as you know, are aplenty in Anor Londo. The radiance of the instrument resembles the glowing expectations of Gwyn, the society of Anor Londo hovering over this entire track and weighing down on Artorias. Noticeably, Artorias himself does not have a distinct instrument that represents him, at least not yet, and that is quite telling of the situation. Artorias is not a person right now. He is a mission, an idea, and a failed one at that. One last thing. If we look on how things are tonally laid out on the track, the instruments that represent the abyss, the deep and heavy strings, are tonally the lowest thing on the mix. This is quite fitting since the abyss is, well, the abyss. It's below all. Also the root of everything Artorias means. Anor Londo and the church bells then sit high above everything else, comparatively as Anor Londo does literally the same. The city looks over everything. It takes precedent in everything. It is above you and me, and it knows it. Another interesting tie is that Sif has bells in her theme as well, so that could be a connection between the two, which is quite fitting. In fact, we may find a few connections between the two as the track continues. All that is to say that just the opening segment of this track is setting up some serious narrative weight and crazy representation. This bridge does a fantastic job of establishing the other parts of Artorias' theme, the tragedy. This entire segment just feels like it's weeping, like it's on its knees and just completely defeated in the wake of it all. This could represent any number of things, as this tale is steeped in tragedy, but a few specific possibilities could be as follows. It could represent Kiaden, as she cares for Artorias on a personal level, no doubt devastated at his current, hopeless state. Perhaps it represents Princess Dusk, maybe the biggest victim in this entire story. Her kidnapping and subsequent centuries-long entrapment definitely worthy of some space in this track. Perhaps, since this segment's the cello-violin duet, this represents Artorias and Sif, respectively. Artorias, the cello, sinking further and further as the duet continues as violin, Sif, drifts away, the two becoming more and more separated as the story continues. Eventually, though, both are swallowed up by the yawning choirs and deep strings of the abyss. This part is interesting. It's an extension of the bridge that builds tension. The dissonance becomes almost nauseating and swirling as we climb and climb. It's very hard to hear, so I'll replay it in a second, but listen closely to the lower end of the mix. There's a strange muttering sound, either a vocalist or some kind of vibrato-heavy instrument, maybe even a didgeridoo. I like that inclusion. It highlights the maddening drivel of those corrupted by the abyss. It gives me this image of a bloathead, or perhaps even Manus himself, pacing around or hunched in a corner muttering to themselves. Maybe Manus retracing his steps for the billionth time trying to find his pendant. It's all mired in the abyss again. The dissonant choirs and strings keeping that yawning mass alive and well, and keeping any real structure at bay. It's important to note that much like the Star Scourge Radon theme from Elden Ring, this track is lacking a serious identity. There are no memorable or repeating melodies, no comparatively standout chord progressions. The entire track is faceless, which is of course on purpose. This entire minute or so has been an establishing narrative, setting up the scale of the abyss and swallowing up those who try to exist outside of it. I also want to point out something else. I'll replay this part again, but listen underneath it all, under all the music. Whispering. Like 1,000 voices from the abyss all whispering in Artorias' ear, breaking his resolve second by second. Maybe it's even the damned souls of Ulasil following the Abysswalker as he trudges through this battle. Whatever it is, it won't be the last time we hear it. More on them later. Finally, our crescendo hits, and it's still so muted and tired. First off, just listen to the sheer power of that bass, the cello vibrating deep in your skull as shit starts to get serious. Just listen to how much more deadly that dissonant lead-up sounds with that bass integrated into it. It's fucking crazy, man. We get some serious structural reforms as well. Steady strings to set the pace, actual percussion outside of church bells, and just listen to how different the song sounds with those two additions. It feels like another track entirely. There's some life to it now, some spring in its step, some stakes, even some hope. Speaking of which, let's look at those two chords that the crescendo ends on. I'll even bust out my piano for my best Davi Vosk impression. Look how glorious and hopeful these last two chords are in such a stark contrast to the dour murkiness of the rest of the track. They pierce through the haze, almost like Artorias' humanity shining through in one beautiful moment. The symbolism of these two chords sticking out, blessing this track with a spark of positivity and glory amidst the depressing drones of the rest of it really embodies Artorias himself. At the end of the day, he is one of the four Knights of Gwyn, a living legend in his own respect. It's almost like there's another song buried under this one, the rightful theme to a legend of Anor Londo, but no, it's held down, suffocated by the abyss and its murk. Those last two chords are an extremely powerful reminder and a fitting crown to this crescendo. Okay, this part is extremely interesting to me. It actually made me soy face and do a double take the first time I heard it. Now, for the surface level, we have almost a complete mood shift. The choirs and cello carry over, but now they're accented by a harpsichord. The harpsichord is famously a very regal instrument, synonymous for high society, royalty culture. They were highly popular in the Renaissance and Baroque period, being the main keyboard instrument for wealthy courts, so this invokes a certain imagery here. To me, it invokes the image of a hushed gathering of nobles in Anor Londo, maybe swaying in the audience chamber of ONS's boss arena. I say hushed because of how haunting the track still is. It's still empty, huge gaps in volume are still missing. There still isn't any percussion either, it all just feels very hollow. Now, however, it's time for the bombshell. I'm going to replay the track and raise the volume a little, so headphone listeners beware. But I want you to pay attention to what's underneath all this. Do you hear that? The whispering returns, but in a new light. Now they're the whispers of mouths hiding behind cupped hands in the corners of the ballroom. I heard Artorias failed to free New Londo from the abyss. Oh, I heard that he is a dog now. I heard he's headed for the ruins of Ulasil. Oh, I doubt he'll be coming back. The venomous words of those safely outside the realm of danger, those who have the privilege to watch. Maybe it's the words that Gwyn himself can no longer deny. His age is coming to an end and the abyss is only growing stronger. Maybe it's the words that Kiaden flinches at, the doubts cast onto Artorias. It all feels very toxic, very proper and hateful, much like the gossip at a high society court meeting would be. Alternatively, it could be the infinite of the abyss returning, the voice clawing at Artorias, dragging him down into insanity. But I like the first idea better. Plus, it contextualizes the harpsichord better. That deep, overpowering bass makes a return, accentuated with climbing choirs. Perhaps as the fight is coming to a close, salvation is rearing its head at Artorias, released from the torturous claws of Manus. The choirs are in a powerful harmony, like light raining down into the mire of the abyss and catching Artorias, the man, not the knight, in their beautiful rays, promising a gentler existence in the afterlife. But then as the choirs climb and build, it's interrupted by that muttering again. I really do think it's a didgeridoo, the wobbly vibrations mimicking the stammering of Artorias, the incomprehensible state of mind he's been lost to. It sounds a bit mindless, a bit like drivel in what should be this climactic portion of the song. It mirrors Artorias. He should be the hero. He should be the legend, but under the veneer, he's a muttering, shambling shell of a knight, of a savior. That grounding shuddering of the didgeridoo reminds us of the true sad state of things, and the sad state of Artorias, who by now is surely yearning for death. I'm going to talk over this last portion of the song because it's just a repeat of the opening. While this could be easy to dismiss, I think it still holds narrative value. The repetition of the opening is kind of an Ouroboros. It loops back into itself, much like the endless cycle of killing Artorias is stuck in. It almost, in a way, mirrors the self-fulfilling prophecy as well. The end of the track seamlessly loops into the beginning, note for note. It is as if we learned of this prophecy at the beginning of the track, and now here we are at the end as it is resolved, returning to the bass line. And as the track loops in on itself, we finally get to Artorias' last bit of strength. He groans in agony as the abyss wraps around him, but we deny it, forcing the overflowing humanity away from him. As the fight drags on, we grow more desperate until finally, we land the last strike. Listen to that scream of pain. Listen to how human it is, unlike the rest of his groaning and crying. It's almost depressing. Like, the only moment Artorias finally comes through is at the very end, as he dies. Finally, Knight Artorias has died. He can rest now, but our job is far from over. We still need to take up his mantle and finish what we started, to preserve the legend of Artorias. First up, if we reload the area, we'll see Knight herself grieving in the arena. And this is why you saw her in the footage. My save file was kind of fucky. She kneels next to a homemade grave, mourning his loss. I really love the singular white flower that she has posted up on his grave. It's a symbol of beauty, of purity, amidst all of Artorias' corruption that led to his downfall. She kneels next to a homemade grave, mourning his loss. If we approach her, she says this.
Is that not the soul of the man who fell on this spot? He was a dear friend. I wish to pay proper respect with that soul. Would you be willing to part with it?
She asks us if we are willing to give over Artorias' soul to her. Now, taking a step back, just look at this thing compared to the other boss souls we get in Dark Souls. Most of their souls look like bright, glowing embers, but Artorias' soul is wrapped up in the abyss. The purple globs of humanity clinging on, almost like a cancer. Compare this, then, to the soul of Manus, which is wild and pitch black. Artorias is some kind of midway point between man and the abyss, which is an accurate portrayal of the character. Once a man, now clogged up by the abyss. Most people would say no to Knight, as they would want to keep the reward from killing Artorias. If you do say no, she just remains as is, but I decided to give it to her. Partially because I already had Artorias' weapon, and partially because it just feels right. If we do so, she tells us this.
Thank you. You are very kind. Please take this. I no longer need it. May the Lord guide thee.
She tells us that she will no longer be needing her swords, which means she's deserting. With Artorias no longer in service to Gwyn, she just decides to leave, judging that without his inclusion, she has no will left to fight on as a Knight of Gwyn. Now, Knight, like Artorias, has cut dialogue. If you kill her, in the Japanese edition specifically, she calls him my dear Artorias, which could imply more than just the close friends thing everybody says they have going on. Let's be honest though, we've been shipping them the entire time anyways. Either way, we give her the peace of mind, mercy, and all that happy shit as we move out of the arena into the hell domain of Oolacile. In my first playthrough, this place was a fucking nightmare. Probably because I was using Smo's hammer, which prevented me from seeing half of literally everything, but I digress. I forget, I'm trying to make this a quick summary. So, Oolacile is more or less overrun by bloatheads, the old citizens. They either come up to beat us to death or cast some of the most obnoxious magic known to man, all while giggling and laughing at you, the little pricks. Either way, we pass through the city, and we can come upon the silver necklace that was given to Artorias long ago. Honestly, it's a pretty invaluable tool for the upcoming fight, so we'll take it ourselves. We proceed, fighting through large buildings and descending further. Platforms deepen us into the abyss as it creeps further and further until we finally reach it, the township dungeon. It opens up into this massive yawning cavern. Departing down into the cavern, we can quickly find that it's been overrun by humanity's shades, which means we must be getting close to the primordial one himself. If we do some exploring, eventually we'll fall through an illusory floor. Turning the corner, we see Alvina herself, the great feline that befriended Artorias and the one who guards Sif. As we approach her, she disappears and reappears further down to lure us deeper. We follow. As we do so, more and more shades curiously look upon us until she disappears outright. We fend off the shades before hitting an illusory wall. Passing through it, we're confronted with more shades, but we can see a golden glowing sigil behind them. As we fight, we can see her. Sif is resting in the sigil. Killing off the rest of the shades, we approach the legendary Great Wolf. She simply howls and then disappears, leaving behind Artorias' cleansing Great Shield. Simply put, that's that. We descend even further into the infinite blackness until we finally see the fog wall. Passing through it, we get this grim scene that eerily mirrors our introduction into the DLC. Now we come face to face, finally, with Manus himself and the creature he has become. Honestly, as much as I want to talk about this fight, I don't want to interrupt the music any more than I already am, so I'm just gonna let it sing. You know, originally I had a long-winded script going over how much I hated fighting Manus, complaining about his 5-hit ass blaster, the insanity of his pacing, and the sheer numbers of his health bar and damage, but honestly, I'm past that now. I had a classic Dark Souls moment where as soon as I entered that flow state, I fell in love with the fight. I love Manus' design. I love his fight. I love everything about him. He easily went from one of my least favorite bosses to one of my favorites. He is, though, one of those marathon fights. I mean, the footage that I recorded for fighting him for that montage, that front-to-back fight took 8 straight minutes. 8 minutes of me just locking in and entering that flow state, and it was awesome. I should mention that you can summon Sif for this fight, but I never really ended up doing that. In theory, it's fucking awesome fighting alongside Sif to kill Manus in Artorias' stay, but honestly, like most summons in Souls games, it just kind of ruins the pacing and positioning of the fight, which is doubly important for Manus since you have to be so particular with him. But again, short summaries, so let's move on. I'll save my Manus rambling for his own video. I will, however, let my reaction speak for itself when I killed him the first time around.
I fucking killed him! Yes! Oh.
Once he's gone, we see her. Dusk is laying on the floor. The wheel of the self-fulfilling prophecy is turned once more, as Dusk's unresponsive body now lies free of Manus' control. To be honest, I have no idea how this constitutes freeing her. Like, great, the giant evil monster man no longer has you. Have fun escaping the infinite abyss. Oh well. Once all of this is over, we can head all the way back out to the beginning and talk to Elizabeth once more.
I have awaited thee. Thou hast rescued Princess Dusk and rid us of that terrible primeval human, even halting the spread of the abyss. I salute the grandeur of thine enterprise. Please allow me to express my gratitude. I thank thee, as do we all.
She gives us some mushrooms, which honestly would have been much nicer to have during the fight, but what the fuck ever. We can continue. She says,
I will remember thee, but I will keep thy story to myself. This is the best way, for thou art come from a time far ahead. No one will sing thy praises, but yet thy greatness shall live on, for it shall be my purpose to remember all thou hast done for us.
Now, this is the real bombshell. Elizabeth alone will remember our deeds, but let history remember Artorias as the true hero. Thus, the self-fulfilling prophecy is complete. Through our intervention, the spread of the abyss was halted. Artorias unfortunately fell sometime after the battle, or during, it doesn't matter when or how. He slayed the monstrous Manus, saved Princess Dusk, and will be remembered as a true hero forevermore. That's really fucking fascinating, isn't it? The self-fulfilling prophecy is such a hard thing to pull off, but when it's complete, it's like it's this big moment when it all comes together. Now, we can return to the present. Curious to see what Princess Dusk has to say, we find her dipping her feet in the water, I guess, sure. And when she's approached, she has this to say.
This may strike thine ear as somewhat peculiar, but long ago, in my homeland of Ulisio, I was beset by a creature from the abyss. I would have perished then, were it not for the great Knight Artorias. In truth, I saw little of what transpired, for mine senses were already fled. But even still, there was something about Artorias, a certain balance of the humors that quite perfectly fits your semblance. Heavens, could it be that? Oh, dear me. That was Ulisio, many centuries ago. Please excuse my fanciful musings. Excuse me for such whimsical utterances. Only, it was so very odd. You and Artorias. I owe my life to each of you, and both seem to share some resonance of sorts. Perhaps it is the nature of true greatness.
So, there it is. The complete prophecy of Knight Artorias. A sad tale that ends on a surprisingly positive note. My friend, I hope you enjoyed another feature-length presentation of Dark Souls lore. Honestly, I'm very proud of this episode, and if you made it this far, I thank you deeply. So far, I'm more or less on track with the frequency of these uploads for the year, though I definitely want to make a shorter episode next time, but enough rambling. I've already taken up enough of your time. My friend, if you enjoyed, please consider subscribing, especially if you want to keep up with the Song to Story saga. Either way, it means the world to me, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. Peace.
Please, Artorias, I need this. My mom's kind of hollow. I live at Firelink Shrine. I want to give her some humanity.
Yo, Artorias, why are you trying not to somersault? I'm watching your boss fight. That's super disrespectful, man.